got this. I can start.
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तं वन्दे गुरुपरम्परम् ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वार्दिकामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा कार्पण्यदोषोपहाता स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वं धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यस्य निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधिमं त्वं प्रपन्नम् ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाची प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्मायेधि वेदस्य मा अनिष्टः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासिः अनेना अदितेना अहोरात्रं सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवा भद्रं पश्येमक्षभिर्यजत्रः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवाग्वं सस्तनूभिः विषेमा देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति नो इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति न तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रीरिवा कीर्तिपृष्ठं गिरिरिवा ऊर्ध्वा पवित्रो वाजिनीवा स्वमृतमास्मि द्रविणग्वं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कुर्वेदानुवाचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Narayan, Narayan. Thank you for that, Sanchita. Narayan, Narayan, Kavita, Narayan, Narayan, Prem. Wishing you a very, very happy Navratri. It's a very, very auspicious day on which we are starting our 18th chapter today. So, see, Maya ji herself planned it this way. So, we'll start the last chapter today, which is Moksha Sannyas Yoga, right? So let's start with the reading first, and then we'll take it from there. Kavita, do you want to read with us? Actually, sorry, Kavita, I'll ask you to read the next one. Okay. Prem, would you like to read with us?
Sure.
Before we start reading the English, just repeat this with me, okay?
Okay.
Atha Moksha Sannyas Yoga.
Sorry, can you again?
Atha
Ata
Moksha Sannyasa Yoga.
Moksha Sannyasa Yoga.
Now read.
Okay. Introduction. This concluding chapter of the Holy Gita contains the sum and substance of all preceding chapters. The individualized self embodied in the human form is under compulsion to experience the pleasant and unpleasant results of all motivated actions done in past human lives. In addition, there is complete freedom to fashion the thought process in such a manner that the actions done in this life do not result in an obligation for being embodied again for a fresh series of experiences. In human life, there is the freedom to transcend the results of past actions also. Attainment of such a state by the individualized self is called emancipation. The prime objective of the teachings of the Holy Gita is to enable the individualized self to attain this state and realize the real and blissful identity with the Supreme Self. The two main disciplines, either of which hear the individualized self to attain such a state, are called Sankhya Yoga, or the Yoga of Total Perception, and the Karma Yoga, or the Yoga of Action. They have been discussed in detail in the preceding chapters. In Sankhya Yoga, called Sannyasa, the individualized self is supposed to be free of the individual identity. In Karma Yoga, while maintaining the individual identity, all actions are performed while surrendering them and their outcome to the Lord, the cosmic supreme self of all. That is why this chapter is named the Yoga of Emancipation by Renunciation. This chapter begins with a question posed by Arjuna.
So, we're now basically, so this chapter, last chapter, it is the longest chapter in Gita. We have 78 shlokas to go through. And we'll basically sum up all aspects of Gita in this chapter, right? And we'll take a fresh look at all the things that we have done from a perspective of someone, of an Arjun, who has gone through the first 17 chapters, right? So, I think at this stage, in the very first opening paragraph, Bhagwanji has made clear a question that I think was asked again and again in the first 6 chapters, right? What is free will? What is destiny? How do we have, how do you balance destiny versus the free will? So Bhagwanji has told us in the very opening chapter how to now understand it. And I think it will be much clearer now that we have gone through the first 17 chapters. We always talk about this world as being a dukhalay, a house of sufferings, right? Dukhalay, house of sufferings. Okay, there is no real happiness in this world. There is no happiness that lasts. There is no bliss that lasts. There is pleasures. You experience pleasure, but it's fleeting. And then everything associated with that pleasure will then turn to unhappiness or suffering of some kind, right? So that's why it's a house of sufferings. We are under a bondage. When we take birth, we are under a bondage to go through this suffering. And we are under that bondage because of the law of nature. There is this law of actions and consequences that happen. So whatever actions we have taken and we will take, they'll always have an associated result with it. Every plant, every seed that we sow, every action that we do is like a seed that we will sow. And that seed will fructify if it has been given the right type, when the right circumstances arise. In certain cases, that seed will fructify into a plant in this lifetime, or it may fructify into a plant at a later lifetime, right? Whenever the circumstances are right, that seed will turn into a plant. It will bear flowers, it will bear fruit, and that fruit is the consequence that we always talk about, right? Good actions will lead to sweet fruit. Bad actions, poor actions are going to lead to a bitter fruit. And we will have to eat that fruit. So we are under a compulsion for that. Just like any physics law, this law is that strong. You can't escape it. You cannot escape the results of your actions. So we are under a compulsion to bear that. So when we are born in this lifetime, we take a certain part of our prarabdha. Okay, every time we do something, we put it into this little box of our prarabdha, right? So it's called the sanchit prarabdha, the accumulated prarabdha. From that, we take a small part out as our destiny for this life. And as part of that destiny, what has already been given to us? The arth and the kam. Out of the four purusharth of our life, arth, kam, moksha, and dharma, right? Out of the four, the first two are given to us as part of our destiny. right? What is our swabhav, what is our nature when we are born, what are our sanskars that we are born with, and what kind of uh, economic circumstances we will have, what kind of mental circumstances we will be born with, mental thought processes that we'll be born with, what kind of desires will get fulfilled. This is all given at the beginning of our lives. Okay. In astrology, they say that, they can actually read your stars and pretty much say what aspects will fructify and how you would be, blah, blah, right? So all of this is stated at the time of your birth. Okay. Now, if that is the case, then always the question is, okay, so Reiki, that's just so fatalistic. Then it doesn't matter what I do or what I don't do, right? Then where is my free will? So the most important place where free will comes into play is the most important place for free will is the thought process, the mental level. When we experience the prarabdha that we ourselves have created in the past, okay, in some cases you will experience the prarabdha of this life only. You've done something, you went and screamed at your spouse. He's going to give it back to you at some point of time in this life only. Okay, he's not going to keep it for next life. So you will hear it back. Okay. So you will get, so there are some of those, right? But a lot of our big life circumstances that we see typically have been decided by our past actions and the prarabdha we have to experience, especially the most important relationships we have, the families we are born in, the place we are born in, the circumstances we have, and the circumstances, big circumstances we will experience in our lives have been stated because of the prarabdha. It is our free will to decide how we will behave in those circumstances, how we will deal with these circumstances that will come, right? In a lot of cases, the action itself of some kind will get done. There is some free will in terms of like the range of actions that you can take, right? Now, these range of actions themselves get determined by our thought process. What is our bhav when we go through a circumstance, when we go through a VVGP, right? What is our state of being? Are we being in Satogun? Are we being in Rajogun? Are we being in Tamogun, right? And what bhav are we having? What purpose? What is the purpose with which I'm approaching my life or any VVGP, right? In that moment, that will then determine the range of actions that I can take. All right. And then there would be slightly different then results that will come from that action that I have taken now, right? Will then determine future life. You get what I'm saying? The VVGP we have to experience today is dependent on our past action, but it is my free will to decide what purpose, what bhav, how do I really tackle this VVGP, and hence the actions I will take. And then these actions then determine the future results that come. Okay. Now, all of that is very good. But then the point becomes, right, if we continue this path, okay, and then the first step is, of course, as we always said, remember, there's always a ladder, right? If we are in a space of tamogun, we have to go to rajogun. If we are in a space of rajogun in any aspect of our life, we have to go to satogun. Eventually, we have to go to a satogun in all aspects of our life. That we should constantly sit and abide in satogun through our lives. When that happens, we will be in a state to even leave satogun behind, right? And only then we can really achieve the emancipation, which is nirgun. No gun exists there. Okay. So, but for that nirgun, we first have to get to satogun. So every aspect of our life has to transcend up to that level. Which means that our first thing is to make sure that the wrong actions that we have, the wrong thoughts we have, the wrong words we speak, or the wrong feelings we get, right? Oftentimes, those need to be improved upon. Those are the vikars that we have, right? The anger, the upsets, the jealousy, or victimhood. I am always, people are always taking advantage of me. All those other vikars we have, right? They or attachments of all kinds, right? Vitteshna, Putreshna, all of those have to be left behind. When all of these have been given up, these vikars have to be given up for us to go up the curve. So then, and when we are able to do that, our first thing is to like then do good actions, right? Good actions. And eventually we have to move from good actions to doing actions from a fully karma yoga bhav. Because until we get to that level of doing complete karma yoga in every aspect of our lives, every action, even if it's a good action, good action, good action, all those good actions will still lead to a result. And we'll have to come back to experience that result. Okay. So our job is to follow the Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga to be able to roast the seeds. Seeds to create hoenge hi hoenge. You cannot avoid that, right? That's the law of nature. But the option we have or the freedom we have is whether we want to leave those seeds raw so that they sprout into plants and then fruits and bear fruit, or can we roast them? That's where the free will is. The action will happen. There is no way that we can live through this life without taking action. The free will of the free will that we talked about, of how we approach it, right? That free will is what is about the in different words, said in different words, it is the free will is whether you want to leave the fruits, you want to experience the fruits again, or do you want to roast the seeds so that there are no further fruits being created. So this chapter is now going to talk about and focus upon that aspect. And that's why it's called the Moksha Sannyas Yoga, right? So when we think about sannyas, right, people think about sannyas as giving up. Okay. So it's true, it is giving up, but there's another word called tyag. Tyag also means giving up. So it's important for us to understand what is the difference between tyag and sannyas. Okay. So tyag is something that, you know, we can leave, but we leave it for a short period of time and then we can go back to it. So that is tyag. Okay. You leave it, but then you can you give up an action or a feeling or a thing or whatever, but you can always go back to it. So it's an action. It is typically short-term oriented, like a project. Okay. So you do that. That's called the tyag. Okay. Sannyas, on the other hand, is a process. Okay. It's a process, and it is about becoming something. So that's the difference. We always say that we have to go from doing to being, right? So doing is tyag and being becomes sannyas. It's a transformation. It's a process of transformation which will change our very identity. It changes our very being. Okay. So tyag essentially is a means. Tyag is a means. And that tyag from doing certain things at certain periods of time then transforms into another means, which is my way of being. All right. And then that leads to the ultimate goal of moksha. Tyag and sannyas are both means to a goal. The goal is is moksha. That action of tyag by itself is not a goal. I have fasted from certain food. I have done a lot of exercise. These are not goals in themselves. We must remember them. All physical tyag, all physical or mental or emotional or verbal tap that we do, and whatever tyag we do in that tap is only a means to eventually become that being at all points of time, which will then lead to moksha. Okay. So sannyas for karma yoga, in the context of karma yoga, and I'm going to specify this. So what we will not touch upon Sankhya yoga as much. We will touch a lot more about what it means for a karma yogi, because we are all in that space only. We are supposed to be, but we should follow the path of Bhakti Mishrat Karma Yoga, right? So, so sannyas for a karma yogi means that we have to give up our sense of selfishness, right? And we have to assume our identity of I, me, myself has to become expansive. And it has to, so either you give it up completely, which is Sankhya Yoga. Okay, which is Sankhya Yoga. You give up your sense of self. There is no sense of self. In Karma Yoga, you don't give up your sense of self. Okay, you still know who you are. You still have your identity. What you do is you expand your sense of I, me, myself to include not just yourself or your spouse or your family or your community. It just eventually keeps on expanding until it becomes everybody. Okay. And so then you approach everything from a perspective of, instead of the perspective of what is it in it for me? And what can I get out of it? What can you do for me? What is the company doing for me? What is the school doing for me? What is this community doing for me? What is the condo management doing for me? From that, we move to a state of how can I be of seva? What can I do for you? What can I do for my community? What can I do for others? How can I be of service? Our mindset and our entire way of being should and must turn to that. In Karma Yoga, whenever we start to approach, our life should be built around that. How can I be of service? That is a sannyas. That is a practical way of taking sannyas while living our lives the way they are. Okay. And in this kind of a sannyas, right, in Karma Yoga, the tyag is a constant thing. It has to happen moment by moment by moment, slowly. Kshane, kshane. Every minute there is going to be tyag. Tyag of your attachments, of your desires, of your, your all the vikars that we have, right? So everything, moment by moment, your ego, your biggest tyag is that of your ego. Kshane, kshane, every moment there has to be tyag of your ego and your expectations, basically. Right? And then that leads to a transformation at the bhav level, which causes us to, get to that level of sannyas where we are only operating from a space of how can I be of service? Your only thought is every VVGP that you encounter, then there is no fear in your life. There is no anxiety in your life because there is no expectation. There is no ego. There is nothing you want out of that situation. You only approach every situation with a feeling of gratefulness that I have another VVGP here to cleanse my prarabdha, to get closer to Bhagwanji. And now I will approach it with, okay, now this situation has come. How can I be of service here? In that moment, then you will see, and the way you will realize this is that your calmness in your life will increase. That feeling of being calm, composed, being happy, not worried, no fear, no anxiety, no anger. Like these things will reduce significantly over a period of time. More and more moments of like difficult situations will come and you will look back and say, 2 years ago, I would have really felt upset at this. I would have been really fearful if the situation came. I would have been really, full of anxiety if the situation came. But today, I don't feel that at all. I'm completely calm. It is here. It is what it is. And now I'm being much more effective at dealing with it. And I'm being much more productive. And I'm actually being of service in the situation. And, that is where our karma becomes very, I don't remember that word now, but it's basically your karma becomes very, very effective. Okay. So that's the context with which now we will go into this chapter. Yes, Visalakshmi.
Hi. Can you please tell some more examples between the Tyag and Sannyas? I get little more confused. Tyag is a being of ourself, right? No, being of
Tyag is an action. Okay. We always say that we have to go from an action to a way of being. From
action.
doing to being. Okay. Doing is very rajoguni. And being is satoguni. Because now you're not doing anything. Everything is at calm and you've just become that person, right? So the difference would be just to first clarify between doing and being, right? You can be friendly. I can be friendly to Visalakshi, but not friendly to Kavita. Okay. I can choose if I'm not a friendly person and I'm just doing, I will choose to be friendly to Visa Lakshya, I'll choose to be friendly to Naina, but then I will be unfriendly to Prem, I'll be unfriendly to Kavita, right? But if I am, so this is an action of doing. I do that particular thing, or I embody that kind of an behavior pattern in certain moments. Moment by moment, I do them. In certain moments, I'll be that person. In certain moments, I will not be that person. Okay? Because I am thinking. I'm not that person internally. So I have to think. I have to really put effort to do it. There's a lot of mental energy that goes into it. It's not natural. It doesn't come swabhavik. It doesn't come naturally to me. I have to think. I have to mentally prepare. I have to then have this thing. I like this person, so I will be friendly to this person. This person is not nice to me. I will not be nice to this person. He said such and such thing. Prem was like, he said, 20 things to me. Now I'm very unhappy. So that made me unhappy, right? That is doing. Okay. Being is, I am a friendly person. If I'm friendly person at a bhav level, I don't have to think. It becomes natural to me. Doesn't matter who comes to me, I will behave in a friendly fashion to that person. Okay? It doesn't matter what you say or what you don't say, what you do or you don't do. I don't care. I will continue to be who I am.
So no judgments is there.
There is no judgment, and there is no, like, you just do it because that becomes your part of being. It's like, if you touch a scorpion, or if you're going to scare a snake, he's going to bite you. He's not going to see a sant hai, ye chor hai. Okay? It's his nature to be that. You put your hand in fire, that fire will burn you. That is the nature of fire.
Whoever it is. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. A child goes in, a sati goes in, a thief goes in, a saint goes in. Fire will burn everybody because that's the nature. Gravity will apply to everyone equally. So this is the concept of nature, your swabhav. So this is how we should become. When we become something, then we are that irrespective. You get that sense? Okay. So now tyag and sannyas, the difference is, tyag is an action that you have to do. Sannyas becomes your way of being. You cannot get to sannyas without doing tyag first.
Okay.
So you have to do tyag, but tyag cannot happen like, we'll start that way. We all start that way. Puja kar rahe hain. Okay, I'll start with puja as an action. 15 minutes a day. I'll do it once in the morning, once in the evening, right? Now that puja has to increase. It cannot be, those 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. It will become 30, 1 hour, 3 hours, 4 hours, 10 hours, 24 hours. Shane kshane. Tyag of expectations, tyag of ego has to be done moment by moment by moment. Every minute we have to be conscious of it. And every minute we have to do it again. Because the moment we don't do it, we are back to not doing tyag anymore. We are back to being attached to things. We are back to having desires. Desires are a very strong inherent part of us. So the moment there is no savdhani, you're back to being attached to something. So tyag has to happen moment by moment by moment. And when that continues as an action, and then more hours of our lives that we are aware and are constantly doing tyag, right? Swaha, swaha, swaha. Then that tyag becomes a part of us. Then like that puja is puja 24/7. Now puja 24/7 means what? You're not just sitting in a temple and just doing diya jalake aarti, right? Puja 24/7 means that you are doing all your actions, but in a karma yoga fashion. You're treating every single person as Bhagwan Ji. Whoever you're dealing with, आप उनकी सेवा कर रहे हैं, and you're doing that seva as if they are Bhagwan Ji. तो आपने उस सबकी पूजा कर ली, आपने continuously भगवान जी की पूजा की, उनकी सेवा की, correct? Pura, then the mandir is not just that one little corner in your house or one temple in outside, right? The mandir is this entire world. Wherever you move, you will have that sense of reverence. Because the whole world is your temple. But for that, that puja timing has to increase. And at some point of time, you'll be like, I can't sit there any longer. I have other things to do. So you will have to transform your puja to bring it into your life. And then it becomes at your bhav level. So this is the difference between tyag and sannyas. Okay. So sannyas means that you will now constantly be in a space of seva bhav. What can I do in this situation? How can I be of use in this situation? What can I give in this VVGP to this VVGP? When we are in that space, we know that we have now achieved sannyas.
Thank you.
Okay. So Kavita, you will start with us.
This chapter begins with a question posed by Arjuna.
Arjunuvacha
Arjuna uvacha
sannyasya mahabaho
Sanyasya mahabaho
tattvam michhami veditum
tattvamichhami veditum
tyagasya cha hrishikesha
ragasya cha rishikesha
prithakeshini shudana.
pritakeshi nishudana. Arjuna asked, O Mahabahu, O Rishikesh, O Keshini Shundana, I want to know the essence of sannyasa or renunciation, as also separately that of self-surrender. Sannyasa and self-surrender. Shankhya Yoga is generally considered to be sannyasa, of which the external form is dissociation with the world. The Karma Yoga is based on an abandonment not of actions, but of the conceit of the doership of actions, and consequently disassociating with the resultant obligation to experience their result. This is why in this question, Arjuna wants to know the essence of both sannyasa and self-surrender.
So in this shlok, we have we have this word. See, how is Arjun being referred to? Or sorry, how Arjun is referring to Bhagwanji. So he has referred to him through 3 different ways. The first one is Mahabaho. Mahabaho, he's referring to him as one who has boundless capacity to solve problems. So Bhagwanji has a boundless capacity to solve all our problems. So he's calling him Mahabaho. Then he is calling him Rishikesh, right? Rishikesh is one who dwells in our hearts. So he says that you who lives in our hearts, because so if you live in my heart, then you already know what's in my heart. You know it better than I know my own heart, right? So you know me better than me, and you are also the controller of all my senses. And then he says, he refers to him as Keshini Shudan. Keshini Shudan is Keshi. So it's basically, there's a story around it where Keshini is a demoness who he kills, right? As a baby, Krishna kills that demon. But what it represents is Keshi means a covering of ignorance. So Keshini Shudan is that you are the destroyer of the veil of ignorance in my life. So he's referring to him as that person, that you who dwells in my hearts and knows what is going on inside of me, one who controls all my senses, one who has a boundless capacity to solve all the problems, and you who is the destroyer of the veil of ignorance. Explain to me what is the difference between sannyas and surrender. Right? Sannyas, when he refers to sannyas as what we typically know. Sannyas means you just take abandonment, you will not have a family, all of that, right? What we generally say, Geruve Vastra Pehen Liye and all. So he says that is typically seen in the Sankhya Yoga, right? But in Karma Yoga, you've explained to me that there is an abandonment as well, but that abandonment is not of actions. Like in Sankhya Yoga, there is an abandonment of attachment to the results of actions, right? And there is a surrendership of ego, right? The tyag that we just talked about. So he's saying, explain to me the deeper essence of these two things, right? We'll move on. Sanjita, you want to read with us?
Connection. Before putting forth his own views about the two terms, the Lord acquaints Arjuna with the notions which are prevalent about them.
Sri Bhagavan
Sri Bhagavanuvacha
Kamyanam Karmanam Nyasam
Kamyanam Karmanam Nyasam
Sannyasam Kavayo Viduhu
Sanyasam Kavayo Viduhu
Sarva Karma Phalatyagam
Sarva Karma Phalatyagyam
Prahustyagam Vichakshanaha.
Prahustyagam Vichakshanaha. The Lord said, the wise ones interpret sannyasa to be the renunciation of actions in pursuance of desires. The seers regard the abandonment of the results of actions as self-surrender. Prevalent notions about sannyasa and self-surrender. Generally speaking, the actions of persons are based on two impelling factors. One is the desire to obtain what is thought to be an object of liking. The other is the aversion to suffer what one dislikes. Most people think that the aim of human life is to perform actions in pursuance of these two forces, which are thought to be primal. Hence, many thinking persons hold the view that by the word sannyasa is meant a conditioning of the human mind, whereby there is total dissociation with the performance of actions under the impulsions of these two forces. In the second line of the shloka, the Lord gives another view held by another set of learned people, which is that abandonment of the result of actions is self-surrender.
Quite clear, right? So we'll move on. Prem, do you want to read with us?
Sure. The Lord gives two more views prevalent about this matter.
Tyajyam dosha vadityeke
Tvayam dosha vadityake
karma prahurmanishinaha
karma prahur manishah manishanaha
yajnadana tapah karma
yagna dhyana tapa karma
na tyajyam miti chapare
natyama yapita chapare
na tyajya miti chapare.
natyaja yamiti chapare. Some thoughtful persons hold the view that all actions should be abandoned, as they are all tainted with evil. Others say that yagnas, charities, and austerities should never be abandoned. Two more views. The third view is that all actions suffer from one taint or the other. As such, some persons feel that doing any action is fraught with demerit, for by doing an action, it would be obligatory to experience its result, be it good or bad. The fourth view is that the performance of yagnas, charities, and austerities must not be given up as they yield good results.
In the last two shlokas, Bhagwanji is now laying down the background before he specifically answers Arjuna, right? What is the deeper essence, right? Now, high level essence we've understood. Now, what is the deeper essence of sannyas or self-surrender? Sannyas in the context of the way we understand it in Sankhya Yoga, and the self-surrender in the context of Karma Yoga. So he's told us that one is that there are four different prevalent views right now. The first prevalent view is that generally people follow actions, likes and dislikes. So if you can give up likes and dislikes and you only do duty as per your dharma, right? That is sannyas. Then the second thought process is that if you can give up the attachment to the results of the action, that is sannyas. The third set of thought processes, don't do anything. Because if you do any action, because the nature is such that every action leads to a fruit, then it is going to become, we will continue to be in bondage. So don't do any action, right? That's the best thing, right? And then the fourth thing, the counter to this one is that you cannot not do any action, because tap, dan, and yagya, and this is something that we had read in the previous chapter as well. Tap, dan, and yagya should never be given up. Okay, for a karma yogi, anyway, we've been told that all our actions should fall into these three, right? So the third view is basically don't even do this. Okay, when you're doing things, then do these three things: the dan, tap, and yagya. But the best thing is to just even transcend them. Don't do even these, right? The fourth view is, nah, I don't quite agree with you. Actually, these three things can never be given up. You always have to do gyan, tap, and dan. Okay, so that's the fourth view here. So now Bhagwanji will tell us about, he will go deeper into each of these and explain to us. So let's go ahead. Naina, do you want to read with us?
In this way, the Lord has spoken about 4 views which are put forth by thoughtful persons. In all these 4 views, there is emphasis on abandonment in one form or the other. Now the Lord expounds his own view and begins by saying that people talk about renunciation or abandonment of self-identity or of action or of doership, but few of them realize that renunciation and abandonment are themselves of 3 types. As such, the importance is not of what is given up, but that of what type that renunciation or abandonment is. Elaborating this, the Lord says,
Now, this is where you realize that he's going another level deeper, right? First of all, we're talking about the surrender or abandonment, and that itself we are talking about at a meta level, right? You're not talking about physical stuff any longer. You're talking about identity, you're talking about likes and dislikes, you're talking about, your attachment to results. And this is exactly what we've been reading, right? For the first 17 chapters. So we're like, yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? Now he's saying, nope, even there, you have to go to the level of purpose and bhav. Okay? And we have, that will tell you there are 3 types of abandonment, even of these aspects, which you would otherwise, when you hear and think about it after the first 70 times, yeah, of course they are renunciation. Of course, these are amazing things to do. Now he'll say, nope, 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 nope. It's a deeper level for us to go to now. Okay? Nischayam shrunu me tatra
Nishchayam shrunu me tatra
त्यागे भरतस्ततं no त्यागे भरतस्ततं
tyage bharatastatam
त्यागो हि पुरुष व्याघ्र
tyago hi purusha vyagraha
त्रिविध त्रिविध संप्रकृत प्रकीर्तितः
trividha samprakirtitah. Now hear from me my decision about this abandonment, O Bharatastamaha. This abandonment is also of 3 types, O Purusha Vyagraha. 3 types of abandonment. The views of the Lord about abandonment or self-surrender are extremely pertinent. People generally think that abandonment means just giving up, but few would imagine that this giving up is itself of 3 types depending on the mental attitude on which the abandonment is based.
So here Bhagwanji is now that he's talking to him, he's referring to Arjun as Bharatastama, the ultimate of all Bharats. And who's a Bharat? Bharat is one जिसका भरण पोषण हो गया है, one who has had his full, who does not have any desires left to be filled up any longer. There is no abhav, there is no lack in their life. Okay, so that is the type of Arjun he is now referring to for this level of discussion. Okay. And then he refers to him as Purusha Vyaghra, the tiger among men. Tiger among men means the person who has the who is fierce and who is strong like a tiger. And what is he fierce or strong about? The fact that he has his man under his control, right? And through his man, he has exercised full control over his senses. So this is a person for whom dam, sham, titiksha, all of that is already in place for this person. So he's been referred to as the Purush Vyaghra, the tiger among men. Now, the interesting thing here is that there at no point of time it has got ever anything to do with how we are with others. You are a tiger among men if you have control over yourself. जय, दूसरों की जय से पहले खुद पे जय करें. Right? So that is always the concept of Gita. And then now he's saying that people talk about abandonment as giving up. So here this abandonment refers to tyag, the action of giving up that we were talking about. It's an action. That is what he's referring to here. Remember the tyag versus sannyas that I had explained in the beginning. So here abandonment refers to tyag as an action point. Visalakshi, you'll read with us.
Connection. Before delineating the three types of abandonment, the Lord first stressed that irrespective of what the type of abandonment is, it is essential for everyone to perform yajnas, charities, and austerity.
Yajna dana tapah karma
Yajna dhyana karma
na tyajyam karyameva tat
yatyacharya karma tat
na tyajyam
yatyajam
karyameva tat
karyameva tat
yajna danam tapaschaiva
yajnanam tapchaiva
pavanani manishinam
pavanani manishivanam. Acts permitting of to yagnas, charities, and austeries should never be abandoned, as they constitute bounden duties. Yagnas, charities, and austeries render the wise ones pure. Yagnas, charities, austeries never to be renowned. Thus, the Lord says that before explaining what the types of abandonment are, he would like to assert that in no case should yajnas, charities, and austeries be given up, as they constitute essential duties for everyone, for different stage of the person's life and also in different circumstances of the life. Different yajnas, charities, and austeries has been prescribed that they must be understood very clearly, and the person should perform only those actions which fall in one or the other of these categories. The Lord says that the reason is that they are a great purifier of person's inner being. If this purification is not done, all efforts to maintain self-realization could be waste. Just as all labor in trying to row a boat that is firmly anchored to the river bank serves no purpose. Many people whose mind are firmly anchored on worldly values of life perform acts of worship with their bodies in the beyond hope that they doing so they would attain self-realization. But if yajnas, charities, and austeries are performed with the sense of self-surrender and dedication to the Lord, the boat of the thought of the mind sets serve from the anchor of worldly delusion. This is why these three practices are or asserted to be a purifier of the mind.
So, so before he even goes into describing anything else, he's debunked the fourth myth, right? The fourth thought process that was put forth. Sorry, the third one, right? And he says that the fourth view is actually correct, that you can renounce, you need to renounce, you need to do sannyas, but you can never renounce yajna, dan, and tap. Every single person must do Gyan, Yajna, and Tap. Okay, so he is, and why is that so important? See, because one is that there is no possibility, because see, we are all karma yogis, right? He's talking to a karma yogi Arjun. He's not talking to a sannyasi Arjun. So for a karma yogi Arjun, the big difference is that there is always an identity. You cannot give up your sense of identity. And what is that identity? That ego. Okay. It is always going to be there. You will always say, I am who I am, right? And I am this person with these type of, skill sets or whatever, right? Like I am this person with this characteristics and all, right? That will never go away, for a karma yogi. So there will always be actions to do. You can never escape actions. You're born in a household. You will always have duties. You cannot give up your duties no matter what. So a householder who will give up his duties to go and do puja, who will give up his duties to go and run away to a mountain. I'm going to go and while others are suffering in the wake of him. Of course, you can do all of these things and you have to do all of these things, but you have to do it in such a way that your other duties don't get neglected. Right? So Bhagwan Ji does say you have to do puja, you have to do meditation, but you have to do it in such a way that it becomes a part of your life and it does not affect your other duties, right? So duties cannot be forsaken. Duties are the greatest purifiers. They are the tap that we need. The tap that will create the energy and the fire in which all our vikars, all the impurities inside of us are going to get burnt away. And only when those impurities get burnt away will our mind be pure enough for us to be able to become ready to receive the grace of God to get the moksha in the first place. Okay, so we have to do Gyan, we have to do Dan, Tap, and Yajna at all times. In fact, those are the three things. Everything we do should fall under that. Cannot give that up. Okay, so that's very, very, very clear. And then he also clarifies that if your mind's value systems are not the Gita's value systems, but the value systems of the world, fame, पैसा, घर, गाड़ी, ये सब तो होना ही चाहिए बच्चे को कॉलेज में, he has to go to a certain type of college. And when we are teaching our children, see, it comes out, we may say whatever we say, ultimately our values will come out in our children. You have to look at your children to know what your value systems are. So if you are teaching your child every day, maths karo, English karo, physics karo, science karo, right? And you have to do well in your exam because you have to get into a good college, because you have to get a good job. Okay, but you're not telling him that more important than all of this is for you to know what is the right way to live life. You're not really teaching him what is Gita's way of living life, what is his duty. Right? He has to study, or he has to do whatever tap he has to do in his brahmacharya ashram, because that's his duty to do so. Right? Because it prepares him well for doing his duties in other ashrams of life. Right? So not because he has to get a job. Right? So if he's not going after that next big job and those 5 Porsches and 6 houses in like 7 countries, then he will prepare himself differently. He will prepare himself to not just do well in school and just be a topper, but he'll prepare himself to be a good citizen, to be a good person who can be a good value creator in his community, who will be a person on whom everybody can depend on, and who's always being of service wherever he goes. He's a person who will emit khushbu wherever he goes. Right? He becomes that person. And that is the purpose of brahmacharya life. That you fully understand what is your duty, how to perform duties, and various VVGPs that come in this kid's life as part of being part of being in family, part of being in a community, part of being in school. He understands there are multiple different types of small. These are microcosms of life, which will teach him how to be and how to think, right? When he faces failure in his life, how will he deal with it? How does he deal with self-surrender? These are the important things to teach a child. Everything else takes care of itself, right? So whether our mind has worldly values or whether it has Gita values will reflect on what we teach our children. Very easy for us to see that. Okay, but cheat sheet for us to know. And if a person his mind is filled with worldly values, and then he is doing all kinds of actions, right, of puja, worship, right? You know, जो कहते हैं ना, 100 चूहे खाकर बिल्ली हज को चली. This is that action. So you do whatever, and then you go for your hajj. Mein I will go and like, no, what was that? Whatever, Triveni Sangam, I will go and take a dip and all, right? It will have zero effect on you. Zero effect is what Bhagwan Ji is saying. You will go much further with your purification of your mind if you do Gyan, Tap and Yajna. So focus on that. Sanchita, right? We are back to Sanchita's reading, right? And everybody's read. Okay. So Sanchita, you'll read it us.
Yeah. The Lord gives two more views prevalent about this matter.
Now we are on Shloka 6.
Sorry. Continuing the exposition of these three practices, the Lord also points out how these practices should be undertaken.
Etanyapi tu karmani.
Etanyapi tu karmani.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Kartavyani ti me partha.
Kartavyani ti me partha.
Nishchitam mattam uttamam.
Nishchitam mattamuttanam. But even these actions should be performed without involvement and craving for the results, O Partha. This is my well-considered decision. Points to be borne in mind while undertaking the three practices. The Lord explains 2 points in this connection. The first point is that a righteous action is undertaken not just because it is to one's taste or liking. In this matter, the intellect must make the overriding decision that the action is ordained as a duty pertaining to functional classification, stage in life, circumstances, and temperament of the performer. Thus, the taste or liking for doing an action would be completely subordinated to the considerations of call of duty. The second point to be kept in view is that no hope is pinned on pleasantness of the outcome of any such action. When the result is dedicated to the Lord, it becomes sanctified, and it is then partaken as the beneficence of the Lord. He expounds this as his well-considered decision that doing actions in this manner is a person's duty. By performing actions which are ordained as duties, there is no obligation to partake of the results. It is the conceit or the involvement with an action that imposes such an obligation, and the solicitude for the result makes the performer of actions subject to the liability of experiencing the pleasant or unpleasant result.
So Bhagwan Ji, he's just basically making sure that we do not forget this, that Dhan, Yajna, and Tap must be performed, but done in such a fashion that we do not do any of them because of our liking and disliking. आज मन कर रहा है पूजा करने का तो करेंगे, कल नहीं मन कर रहा है तो नहीं करेंगे. And then have a cheat sheet. It's okay, I can have a cheat day today. Right? So we do that to ourselves all the time for any tap we take up, any tap. Okay. So this likes and dislikes we have to go beyond this likes and dislikes. We keep going beyond our likes and dislikes. Every time we do something, we have taken up a tap, right? we said that we will do something. And that is why the different types of fasts are prescribed. It is a small project to help to explain to our mind who's in control here. So every time we take on a tap, and then we put on a prescribed study period, and then we sit down to study at that time, and now I don't feel like it. I feel like listening to music instead. My friends have called. I feel like going out. Now I feel like there's a new movie going on. Everybody else in the family is watching a movie. I also have to watch movie because others are watching it, right? So any of these distractions, when they come, and I tell myself that no, I said I will do this, so I will do this. This is where my intellect overrides my mind. And slowly the mind starts to understand that, oh, okay, I'm not in charge here. It's my intellect that's in charge here. Eventually, over a period of time, right, your mind will stop making these demands, and it will quietly do whatever intellect tells it to do. So that is very, very important. So we have to go past that likes and dislikes. And um and we will be doing these things in a way that we do not expect any outcome out of it. Because whenever we are doing gyan, dan, tap, and yagya, these are all good actions, which means that there is going to be good result that will come out of it. Most cases, right? So now the point is that, oh, then we start to expect that. अब मैंने तो इतना दान किया है, people are not saying thank you to me, I'm not being acknowledged, right? I have done so much for the company. There is no this thing. I've worked hard. I've been working like, I don't know, 80 hours a week, and there is no bonus that has come to me, right? So that expectation of result has to be completely abandoned. Because if not, then that particular attachment to the result, first of all, that sense of doership, I am doing it. I did all those things for the company. I made that presentation. I won the tender, right? This feeling of I made this food, right? That feeling of doership is what causes us to, is what creates the obligation to experience the result. If we don't have that sense of doership, the obligation is not there at all. Then the obligation to bear those results is with Bhagwanji, because you have done it for Bhagwanji, right? You have taken a call for an investment as a manager, investment manager, or have you done it as a broker who's just doing what the customer has told you? That will determine whether when the deal goes south or north, the results, the profits or the losses that come to it, will you bear the responsibility for it, or will the customer bear the responsibility for it? Because you just simply did. He said, buy the stock, you just bought it. You don't think twice about it. Okay, you want to buy, I'll do it. Done. After that, profit or loss is yours. So that sense of doership, I am doing it, or is Bhagwanji doing it? I'm just an agent here. That feeling will create an obligation to experience or not experience the results, the roasting of the seeds or not roasting of the seeds. And then that solicitude for the results, like I want that result, that whether it is pleasant or unpleasant, that is what creates a bondage then to experience those results. So for us to get emancipation, all we need to do is to give up that sense of doership and stop hankering after the results. Because Bhagwanji says, Tathastu, you want the result, go take it. You don't want the result, okay, I won't give it to you. We want it, and so we get it. If we will say, now I don't want it, Bhagwanji will not give it to us. He'll say, no, Bhagwanji, I only want my mind to have only one love, that is of your feet. Say, okay, Tathastu, take that. So remember that we are made in the image of the Lord. So we will get whatever we asked for. We just have to be very careful of what we ask for. More than often not, we are not careful about what we ask for. It's like a child who keeps saying, I want chips, I want chips, I want chips because I like it. He does not know how bad it is for his body, right? Okay. Nena, you want to read with us?
Thus emphasizing the importance of performing duty as an obligation for everyone, the Lord proceeds to clarify the three types of abandonments based on the three gunas.
Niyatasya tu sannyasah
Niyatasya tu sannyasah
karmano nopapadyate
karmano nopapadyate
mohatasya parityagah
mohatasya parityagah
tamasa parikirtatah.
tamasah parikirtatah. Truly speaking, an abandonment of obligatory actions is not justifiable. Giving them up on the account of delusion is said to be tamasic abandonment. Giving up of performance of duties by delusion, tamasic abandonment. If a person decides to give up performance of all actions, the performance of obligatory duties would be given up, along with actions motivated by desires. Giving up duties on the account of such a delusion is never desirable. Abandoning duties amounts to a tamasic form of abandonment. Gradually, a person who does not perform obligatory duties becomes a slave to laziness, purposeless activity, and sloth. Such habits bring in suffering in this life and also cause birth in lower forms of creation in the hereafter. Thus, essential duties prescribed by scriptural and social canons must always be performed and should never be abandoned, as has been advocated by some people mentioned in shlokas 2 and 3. As mentioned therein, some people think that giving up all actions is the hallmark of a sannyasi, but in this shloka, the Lord contradicts this view quite forcefully and calls it a view based on delusion.
So, why are we supposed to do actions in the first place? We're supposed to do actions. Bhagwanji has prescribed certain set of actions to keep us busy. It's important to keep busy because if the mind is not strong enough, if the mind is not powerful enough, then when there is nothing else to do, it is the tendency of a weak mind to become to start doing some or the other purposeless activity, because mind is a monkey. It has to constantly move on to something, it has to grip on something. So a weak mind will eventually get towards some kind of purposeless activity. It will become a slave to laziness and sloth. All right. So to prevent that from happening, Bhagwanji has prescribed duties to all of us, which are very clearly obligated on everyone. And very importantly, the duties that are prescribed to us change with our ashram of life. The duty prescribed for us in brahmacharya life, right, as a brahmachari, is different from that in grahasthashram, which is different from us in our vanprasthashram, which is different from us in our sannyasashram, right? And so it is important that we are constantly doing our duties to make sure that our mind keeps getting stronger, right? Bhagwanji's, so, and a way to think about it is that the muscles atrophy if they are not used, right? So a mind weakens further if it is not used. So it must be used properly under the direction by the intellect to perform obligatory duties, which must be those that are prescribed as per your ashram, right? So as a grahast ashram, you cannot say, I'm going to abandon all my duties and I will go and like sit in a hostel and I will study. You have duty of a grahast. You have duties to take care of your children, of your spouse, of your parents, of your community. Grahast का ही काम. Community को कौन चलाता है? गृहस्थी चलाता है, right? So you have those duties. You have to go work. You have to do all of those things. You can't run away from those duties. Then similarly, when your kids have grown up and they are on their own, अब उस टाइम पे भी आप लगे हुए हो बच्चों के ऊपर, तुम क्या कर रहे हो, तुमने खाना खाया, तुमने ये किया, तुमने वो किया, right? That is not your duty any longer. If you continue to meddle, then that means you've not done your duty when it was supposed to be done, right? And so you've not created children, you've not crafted them in a way that they are independent human beings who can make the right decisions. So अब time waste करने से कुछ नहीं होने वाला, right? So we have to do the right duty at the right time. और गृहस्थ आश्रम में हम हैं, हमारे बच्चे हैं, हमें उन्हें संभालना है, हम वो संभालने की जगह अपने माँ बाप को दे दें, and we are going on holidays, right? We are doing our, like, now we are working 24/7 because career is so important. Now I can't take care of my children, so my children will be taken care of by the grandparents throughout the time. I'm not saying that grandparents can't help, but there is a difference, thin difference, where you stop taking responsibility for your kids and you give it to your parents. Your parents have done their duty. Your children are your duty. You cannot give them up to them. It is not their duty. And if the grandparents are fulfilling that duty, that is also wrong, because then they are not doing the duty they are supposed to be doing as grandparents. The way grandparents are supposed to be with children, with grandchildren, is different from the way the parents are supposed to be. Disciplining is parents' duty. Grandparents' duty is to grandparent them and smother them with love. Right? Very different ways of being and very different duties. ठीक है? So we are supposed to be doing our duty and not pardharm, swadharm, not pardharm. Okay, oftentimes we take on a lot of rajoguni activities कि तुम्हारा भी काम मैं कर देती हूँ, तुम्हारा भी मैं काम करती हूँ. बॉस हमें डेलीगेट करना चाहिए काम, डेलीगेशन करना आता नहीं है, तो सब काम हम ही कर रहे हैं. आई एम द डोंकी because I can't delegate and I can't be an effective manager. So अब दूसरों का काम कर रहे हैं. अगर दूसरों का काम कर रहे तो I will not get time to do my own swadharm. So all these things we can't just do because we are supposed to do. You are supposed to do only swadharm which is appropriate for your for your stage of life. And the person who does not do this, right, on the pretext of a delusion that I am becoming a sannyasi, that person is that kind of abandonment, is a tamasic abandonment. Abandonment of your duties because you don't want to do anything. So the third view that was given up, right, that you should not do any activity. So the fourth one, he has already told us. The fourth view, he's given us his decision on the fourth view. The third view was give up all activities. He said, if you give up all activities, that means you will have to give up your obligatory duties. That's pathetic, like not done. The only people who are prescribed for this action are people who are extremely evolved in their way of being and their minds are extremely strong, right? They are not for people like you and me. आज मन नहीं कर रहा करने का, तो आज हमने abandon कर दिया and put it in the name of भगवान जी कि आज तो हम त्याग कर रहे हैं, right? That's a tamasic त्याग. Giving up any activity, any duty towards your children, towards your community, towards your work, whatever, towards your parents, all right, and push it under some other duty. I am too busy to call my parents. Tamasic abandonment. I am too busy in my office to look at my children's homework. I am too busy in my, we are too busy with community activities and all the volunteering work to, you know, spend time with my own child and make sure that that person really, that kid really knows, you know, whatever traditions, whatever, you know, the Gita way of life. I have no time to spend time with my child. Tamasic abandonment. These are all forms of tamasic abandonment. Okay. Nobody's going to get marks for this. We have time for the next one. It's 11:44. You know, we'll do Rajasic and other stuff later on the next class. 7. We've done 7. Good. We have to go with this pace, huh? This one. This chapter. I think we can go at this pace with this chapter. Okay. So I think we'll stop here and we'll take let's if there are any questions, I'm happy to take that before we go for the takeaways. Start with takeaways then. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first for takeaways. I thought today was quite interesting and it was quite fast-paced actually. But I guess, like you said, we have to go through it. So I felt a little bit confused in the beginning, to be honest, because it was like it's going back on reflecting on a lot of the previous chapters, which I wasn't there for. So for me, I felt a little bit lost, to be honest. But I learned also that it was nice to see that the path and the right way to it is not to like give up all your activities, but to also find doing the right activities without looking at the results. And, I found that again very interesting, and surrendering the ego and, also doing all the gyan, tap, and the yagna the way you want to do it without your likes and dislikes. So that's something I have to also catch myself thinking and making sure that I'm doing everything in the right way as I'm being learned and taught. That was my take.
Thank you, Prem.
I can go next. The main point was the difference between Tyaga and Sannyasa. So I finally understood the difference there. That would be my takeaway, because I realized that Tyaga is just temporary and it's momentary and it can keep coming in and going. But Sannyasa is your state of being. So to achieve that, you have to have Tyaga in every moment of your life. So that would be my takeaway. And of course, thank you.
Thank you.
I can go next. So as Anina mentioned, the Tyag and Sannyasa, to do an action and it becomes a part of my life itself. So the Sannyasa for Karma Yogi is to be selfless. And that is the expansion of the ego. So to expand the ego and to be the selfless, and how I can be the service at all the time. So we have to kind of bring that thought process in any circumstances with any VVGP. What we are am I being a giver, or am I being selfless here, or like I'm being in a service mindset, or I want to take something from there. So that we have to be very aware of. That is my takeaway.
Thank you, Kavita.
Go next. Yeah, I think two things stood out. One is what you spoke in the beginning, your tyag of expectations and the tyag of ego. I think those two becomes very critical, and it's something that, I need to do moment by moment, because, expectations, no matter how much we think that, consciously that, everything, there should be no doership and everything that I'm doing is, for Bhagwanji. But at some point, the ego creeps in, and, you get into this I, me, myself mode of saying ki, I am responsible for doing this, or I have done it. So I think it's a constant practice to bring myself to the point where I say ki, no, nothing is me, it is all him. I think that's a constant practice. While I do it in bits and pieces, but as I said, I mean, as humans, there are those moments that creep in when you start thinking about, you bring yourself first. I think that's the biggest practice point that I have.
You have to do Sri Krishna Arpanamastu for every action. After every action, do Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Make that a habit. That is a very big reminder. Very, very big reminder. Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. And Namjap. We have Namjap Purnahuti coming up on April 12th.
I'll go next. The same takeaway which mentioned Naina and Kavita, like Tyag and Sannyasa. Tyag being every moment you have to without result, without ego, without expectation, anything. You just doing and keep doing without any expectation. That leads you to the sannyas, without selfless. So you keep moment by moment, what you said, you surrender everything to the Supreme God, everything you surrender, whatever, if you, the expectation it comes, you intellect is keep its mind is telling, right? Yeah, you are expecting. So immediately you surrender, then that I am just doing that right now. If any expectations or any judgment is coming, immediately I surrender. Okay, I don't want this. Just go through it, whatever it is. So just I'm surrender. But it calms the mind. Actually, I feel that way. No expectations. It leads like once you surrender, the way of doing right, it's completely changed. Actually.
Very true. Very nice, Visayanakshi. Thank you for sharing. Perfect. So we'll do the closing shlokas in that case. We did it. We could have done one more in hindsight. Acha, who wants to do the closing shlokas? Who wants to take the seva?
I can do it. ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ ॐ ॐ